All right, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're diving into all the online chatter about the Percy Jackson and the Olympian show on Disney+. We got a pretty interesting video essay someone sent us. It's on YouTube. It's called Percy Jackson, An Unfortunate Disappointment.
Oh.
And, well, it goes into, kind of both sides, like what worked and what didn't. Fans definitely seem to have some strong opinions about it.
Yeah, it really makes you think about all the different things that go into adapting, like adapting a book that people already love so much. And this is a great chance to kind of look at all of that and, explore like why people are reacting the way they are to this specific show.
Okay, so one thing the essay talks about is how Rick Riordan, the author, he was really involved in this whole production. And there was all this hype about it being like a really book-accurate adaptation. Do you think that maybe set the bar too high for what fans were expecting?
Well, I think, when you make a promise like that, it definitely it creates a certain set of expectations for the fans. Yeah. It sets the bar pretty high for how the show's going to handle the source material. Kind of like when a restaurant gets like tons of amazing reviews for a certain dish, you go in expecting it to be, incredible. So if it ends up not being that good, you're going to be even more disappointed because you had such high hopes.
Yeah, I get that. And then on top of that, you've got the casting, which everybody seemed to love, especially Walker Scobell as Percy. Even the essay talks about how, like in interviews and stuff, the actors seem to really, embody the characters' personalities.
Yeah, and that's where the essay points out this interesting disconnect. Like, everyone loved the casting choices, but then a lot of the criticism is about how the characters are actually developed, or maybe not developed, within the show itself. So, it makes you wonder, could the actors have done even better if the writing had given them more to work with?
Interesting. And it seems like one of the main complaints is that the show relies way too much on exposition. Like, it tells you everything instead of showing you...
Right, exactly. Instead of letting the audience kind of figure things out on their own, it just spells everything out, which can be kind of frustrating.
Yeah, like they don't trust the audience to be smart enough to understand what's going on unless they explain it all directly.
Right, exactly. And when they do that, they often end up sacrificing character development, because if you just tell the audience what a character is thinking and feeling, there's no room for them to like figure that out through the character's actions or, their interactions with other characters.
Makes sense. And that actually leads into another big criticism, character nerfing, which basically means that the characters, especially Percy and Annabeth, they just feel like weaker and less interesting than they are in the books. Percy, for example, the essay talks about how he's not as funny in the show. And he doesn't seem to have that same impulsive problem-solving energy.
Yeah, and the essay specifically mentions how this affects Annabeth's character, too. In the books, she's this super smart strategist, and she's really independent. But in the show, she kind of gets pushed into a more reactive role. And a lot of her identity seems to revolve around her relationship with Percy.
So it's not just that they've, taken away some of her traits. They've also kind of messed with the whole dynamic between her and Percy.
Right, and that brings up a bigger question about adaptations in general. How much freedom do the creators have to change things when they're bringing a book to life on screen? Is it more important to stay completely faithful to every little detail, or is it more about capturing the essence of the characters in a way that works for this new medium?
That's a really good question. And what about the other characters? The essay mentions Grover and the gods feeling underdeveloped too.
Oh, for sure. Grover, especially, seems to have lost some of his heart and humor. And the gods in general just don't feel as impressive as they should. They don't really have that kind of powerful, intimidating presence that you'd expect from, these immortal beings. The essay does say that Zeus and Poseidon are okay, but overall it feels like the gods just aren't given the same weight.
Yeah, it's almost like they're not taking them seriously enough.
Right.
And speaking of things not being taken seriously enough, the essay goes into a lot of detail about how disappointing episode 6 was, the Lotus Casino episode. Apparently that was a real turning point for a lot of fans.
That's interesting. What was it about that episode that rubbed people the wrong way?
Well, in the book, the Lotus Casino is this super creepy, alluring place.
Right.
And it's like Percy and his friends are slowly drawn in.
Yeah.
And they don't even realize at first that time is passing differently inside. But the show just rushes through all of that.
Oh, okay.
And it just explains the whole time warp thing right away.
So all the suspense is gone.
Exactly. There's no mystery, no buildup.
And you know what else? I remember. Before the episode came out, Rick Riordan was talking it up like crazy. He was even comparing it to the 2010 film, saying this one was way better. It would totally erase the memory of that less than faithful adaptation. So when the episode ended up being kind of a letdown, people felt even more disappointed.
Yeah, it's like he set them up for a huge fall. Speaking of letdowns, some people are saying that the show's just too simple because it's made for a younger audience. But the essay pushes back pretty hard against that idea.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What's their argument?
Well, basically they say that just because a show is made for kids doesn't mean it can't also be complex and well-written.
Right. Makes sense.
They even mention shows like Avatar,
Yeah.
The Last Airbender, and Gravity Falls, which are both shows for, a younger audience.
Yeah.
But they also have really interesting characters and stories.
And people of all ages love them.
Exactly. So basically the essay saying that, don't underestimate what kids can handle. They can totally enjoy a show that's both entertaining and thought-provoking. And actually, this whole Percy Jackson situation, it's really brought out the divide in the fandom.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you've got the stans, right,
Yeah.
who will defend the show no matter what.
Yeah.
And they'll attack anyone who says anything even slightly negative. And then you've got the, more reasonable fans who can see both the good and the bad. And they're willing to, have a discussion about it.
That's interesting. It's this whole adaptation has become this battleground for different opinions and interpretations.
And what's even crazier is that some fans are actually starting to appreciate the 2010 movie more now.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah.
But that movie was so inaccurate.
I know.
Compared to the books.
But I guess because they're so disappointed with the show,
Yeah.
they're looking back at the movie being like, well, at least it was fun.
I mean, I guess I can see that. Sometimes, even if an adaptation gets things wrong, it can still be enjoyable to watch. Maybe it's because it manages to capture a certain energy or feeling, even if it doesn't stick to the plot exactly.
Yeah. And maybe it also just shows how powerful the original story is.
Okay.
Even if the adaptations aren't perfect, the books can still hold a special place in people's hearts.
It's true.
So we've covered a lot of ground here, from the promise of a faithful adaptation to the challenges of character development and even this weird resurgence of the 2010 film. Now let's dive into the next section of the essay, where we'll take a closer look at the show's visuals, the pacing, and on piece, some of the specific changes they made from the books.
Sounds good. It's crazy how much fan expectations can affect how people feel about an adaptation. Sometimes even if you stay true to the book, it can still flop if it doesn't capture the essence of the story.
Oh, totally. And speaking of capturing the essence, what about the visuals in the show? Did they do a good job of bringing the world of Percy Jackson to life?
So, actually, the essay mentions that a lot of fans were pretty disappointed with the visuals. They use the word bland a lot. It just doesn't feel as vibrant and exciting as the world described in the book.
Wow, that's a bummer. You'd think they'd really go all out with the visuals, especially with a story like this.
Yeah, I mean, think about Lord of the Rings or the Harry Potter movies. The visuals were so stunning, and they really helped to immerse you in those worlds.
Totally. And it sounds like the directing and editing weren't that great either.
Yeah, the essay actually uses the word terrible to describe the editing.
Ouch.
It says it was jarring and took you out of the story.
Yeah, good directing and editing can really make or break a show.
For sure. If those elements aren't done well, it can be really distracting.
It's like you're trying to get lost in the story. But then you keep getting pulled out of it because of some weird editing choice.
Exactly. And speaking of things that can pull you out of the story, the essay also talks about the pacing, which apparently is downright insane.
Oh yeah, I can see how pacing could be a problem, especially when you're trying to fit a whole book into just a few episodes.
Right. You got to find that balance between including all the important plot points, but also giving the characters and the story room to breathe.
It seems like the essay is arguing that the show was so busy rushing through things that they didn't have time to actually show anything.
Yeah, so they ended up relying even more on exposition, which just made the problem worse.
It's like they're afraid the audience will get bored if anything slows down for a second.
And it's a shame, because when you rush through things like that, you lose all the tension and suspense.
Exactly. It's like if everything's happening at warp speed, there's no time for the audience to actually feel anything.
Right. There's no time to connect with the characters or to get invested in the story.
And another thing that surprised me is that the essay talks about how the show's handling of magic is kind of weak.
Really?
Yeah.
That's weird.
It says that a lot of the magical stuff happens off screen, or it gets cut off by those fade to black transitions.
That's strange. You'd think they'd want to show off all the cool magic and stuff, especially in a world like Percy Jackson.
Right. It's like they're almost afraid to fully embrace the fantasy element.
Yeah, maybe they were worried about the budget.
Yeah.
Or maybe they were trying to keep things a little more realistic.
But I think by downplaying the magic, they missed out on a chance to create something really visually spectacular.
Absolutely. It's like you're watching a magic show, but the magician keeps hiding all the good tricks.
And it goes back to that whole showing versus telling thing again.
Yep.
It's like they're just explaining the magic with dialogue.
Instead of actually letting us see it
And speaking of telling instead of showing, the essay also criticizes the characters for lacking depth.
Oh, right.
Like, they're there, they look the part,
Yeah.
but they just don't feel as complex and interesting as they do in the book.
Especially the main three.
Yeah, it's like they captured their outer appearance, but not their inner world. And Annabeth gets hit the hardest with this criticism, of course.
Yeah, they basically turned her into a moody girlfriend who's always complaining, instead of the brilliant, independent strategist she is in the books.
Which is a shame, because she's such a great character. And a great role model for, young girls. And it's not just Annabeth. The gods are pretty disappointing too, apparently, especially Hades.
Oh, no. What did they do to him?
The essay describes him as underwhelming and anticlimactic.
Oh.
It's like they took this powerful, intimidating god
Yeah.
and turned him into a boring, forgettable character.
That's a shame.
And then there's Grover, who basically just fades into the background.
Poor Grover.
The essay calls him forgettable and underwritten.
It's like they forgot that he's supposed to be one of the main characters.
It's sad.
Yeah.
Because he brings so much to the group dynamic in the books.
Yeah, he's the heart and the humor.
Exactly.
And he has this really special connection to nature.
Yeah.
That adds a whole other dimension to the story.
And it's like, the show just doesn't capture any of that.
It's a bummer.
So it seems like the main problem is that the show just isn't that fun to watch.
Yeah.
Like, they were so focused on being faithful to the book that they forgot to make it entertaining.
It's tough because you want to stay true to the source material, but you also want to create something that people will actually enjoy watching.
Exactly. And that's kind of the root of the whole fandom divide, right?
Yeah.
Like, some people think that just because the show is faithful,
Yeah.
it's automatically good.
Right.
But other people are like, no, it has to be entertaining too.
It's a tough one. I think it comes down to like what you're looking for in an adaptation. Some people prioritize accuracy above everything else, and other people are more open to changes as long as the adaptation captures the spirit of the story.
And the essay also talks about how even some of the smaller changes they made from the books actually end up hurting the show.
Oh, really? Like what?
Well, for example, they gave the trio 4 pearls instead of 3. Which doesn't really make any difference to the plot.
Yeah.
It just seems like an unnecessary change.
And it just confuses people.
Right. And then they also changed the deadline for the quest.
Oh, yeah.
Which, again, didn't really add anything to the story.
It's like, why even bother making those changes?
If they don't serve any purpose.
It's almost like they were trying too hard to be different, instead of just focusing on telling a good story.
Yeah, I get that. All right, so now for the really juicy part, the fandom discourse. The essay goes into all the drama and debate surrounding the show.
Oh, boy.
Like, people are really passionate about this.
I can imagine. It happens with every big adaptation.
Yeah, and this one seems to be particularly heated.
I guess that's what happens when you're dealing with a story that so many people love.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that. Some of the fans are being really aggressive and toxic.
Oh, no, really?
Yeah, the essay talks about these super stans who will attack anyone who dares to criticize the show.
Oh, man.
Like, they can't handle the fact that some people don't like it.
It's one thing to be passionate about something, but it's another thing to be, like, completely blind to its flaws.
Exactly. And it's not just about the show either. It's like they're personally offended if you say anything negative about Rick Riordan.
Oh, wow.
Like, he could do no wrong in their eyes.
It's important to remember that, authors are just people. They make mistakes, and their work isn't always perfect.
Right. And it's okay to, have different opinions about things.
Exactly.
And one of the most common defenses I've seen from these super stans is the it's for kids argument.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they're saying that the show is simple and predictable because it's made for kids.
But the essay shuts that argument down pretty quick.
Oh, yeah. How?
No.
Well, first of all, they point out that plenty of shows for kids are actually really smart and well written.
Right.
Like Avatar and Gravity Falls, which we already talked about.
Yeah.
And second of all, they say that most of the people watching the Percy Jackson show are actually adults.
Oh.
So the whole it's for kids thing doesn't even really apply here.
So it's like they're using that as an excuse to deflect any criticism of the show.
Exactly. And another excuse I've heard is that, no show has a good first season.
Yeah, I hate that one.
It's such a cop-out.
It's like you're giving every show a free pass to be mediocre.
Right. There are plenty of shows that come out swinging with a fantastic first season.
Totally. You should judge a show based on its own merit, not on some arbitrary rule about first seasons.
Exactly. And you know what's interesting? The essay talks about how Rick Riordan himself kind of set fans up for this disappointment.
How so?
Well, he spent years bashing the 2010 movie.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And telling everyone how much better the show was going to be.
So he created all this hype.
Yeah. And then the show came out, and it wasn't like the amazing, faithful adaptation that everyone was expecting. People were understandably upset.
It's like he overpromised and underdelivered.
Exactly. And I think that's a big part of why people are reacting so strongly to the show's flaws.
Yeah, it's like a betrayal of trust, almost.
And it's also interesting how this whole situation has actually led some fans to reevaluate the 2010 movie.
The movie reckoning, huh?
Yep.
It's funny how things come full circle like that.
I know, right? It's like they hated the movie when it first came out, but now they're looking back on it with new appreciation.
I guess absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Maybe. Or maybe it's just that the disappointment of the show has made them realize that the movie wasn't actually that bad.
Right.
Like, at least it was entertaining, even if it wasn't super accurate.
It's a good reminder that, like, sometimes you just gotta enjoy things for what they are, even if they're not perfect.
Totally. And speaking of things that aren't perfect, the essay wraps up with a discussion of the show's finale. Did they manage to redeem themselves at all?
Well, according to the essay, the finale was actually the best episode of the season.
Oh, wow.
So they did end on a high note.
Maybe there's hope for a future season.
Maybe. But the essay also points out that even the finale wasn't without its flaws. It still had some of the same problems as the rest of the season, like the exposition dumps and the rushed pacing.
So it's a mixed bag then?
Yeah, pretty much. It's like they took a step in the right direction, but they still have a long way to go.
But hey, at least they showed that they're capable of doing better.
That's true.
So I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens in season 2.
If there even is a season 2.
Right. Who knows at this point?
It'll be interesting to see if they take the criticism to heart, try to make some improvements.
Yeah, they have a lot of potential, but they really need to step up their game.
For sure.
I think the biggest takeaway from all this is that adapting a book series that everyone loves is like a super tough job. You got to find that sweet spot between, staying true to the original and also making something that can stand on its own 2 feet as a show.
Yeah, it's about finding that balance, right? Between faithfulness and creative freedom. You want to make the fans happy, but you also want to, potentially bring in new viewers who might not have read the books.
It's like walking a tightrope.
Exactly.
One wrong step and the whole thing falls apart.
And the Percy Jackson adaptation is a good example of that. They clearly tried to stay true to the books, but I think in doing so, they might have, lost some of the things that make for good TV.
The essay makes a good point about that. It says that the show kind of played it too safe by sticking so closely to the plot and the dialogue that it lost some of the magic and energy of the book.
Yeah, it's like they were so focused on getting the details right that they forgot to, breathe life into it.
It makes you wonder, what's the point of an adaptation if it's just going to be a scene-for-scene remake? Shouldn't the creators be allowed to, put their own spin on things?
It's a tough question. There's no easy answer. It's always going to be this back and forth between, honoring the original story and trying to create something new and unique.
It's like cooking, You can follow a recipe exactly, but sometimes the best dishes are the ones where the chef kind of adds their own flair, their own little twist.
Totally. And that's where the creative team behind an adaptation comes in. The writers, the director, the producers, they all have their own vision, their own way of seeing things. And finding the right team can make all the difference.
It sounds like the essay is saying that. The Percy Jackson adaptation could have used a little more of that, a little more creative risk-taking.
Yeah.
Instead of just trying to copy the books exactly.
It would have been cool to see them take some liberties with the story and maybe surprise the audience with something unexpected.
And it's interesting to think about how fan expectations play into all of this. If Rick Riordan hadn't been so insistent on the show being faithful, would fans have been more open to some changes?
It's hard to say, but I think it's important for creators to manage those expectations, especially when you're dealing with a fandom as big as Percy Jackson.
Yeah, they need to be transparent about the adaptation process.
Yeah.
And let the fans know that, some changes are going to happen.
Exactly. And they need to trust that the audience is smart enough to appreciate those changes, as long as they're done well and they serve the story.
It's all about communication, really being open and honest with the fans.
And respecting the source material while also trying to create something new and exciting.
So, to sum it all up, the Percy Jackson adaptation wasn't a total disaster, but it definitely left a lot of fans feeling disappointed. It seems like they tried to do too much at once. They were so focused on being faithful that they forgot to make it fun and engaging.
Yeah, and the essay does a good job of breaking down all the different ways the adaptation fell short. The exposition, the characters, the visuals, the pacing. It's like they missed the mark on so many levels.
It's a shame because the books are so good and they have so much potential for a great adaptation.
I agree. It's like there were moments where you could see what the show could have been, but then they'd go and mess it up with another exposition dump or some weird editing choice.
It's like they had all the ingredients for a delicious meal, but they just didn't know how to put them together properly.
So the big question is, what happens now?
Yeah, what does this mean for the future of Percy Jackson on screen?
Well, hopefully the creators will learn from their mistakes and make some changes for season 2, if there is a season 2.
Right, we're not even sure about that yet.
But they have a lot to work with, They have a great cast, a passionate fan base, and the source material is fantastic.
They just need to figure out how to tap into that potential and create something that truly honors honors the spirit of the books while also being a great show in its own right.
It would be amazing to see them really lean into, like,
Yeah.
the humor and the adventure of the books and the characters, the relationships, the world building. There's so much they could do.
I'd love to see them, like, really embrace the fantasy element and create these big, epic, visually stunning scenes.
Yeah, imagine Percy battling a monster, or Annabeth using her smarts to outwit a trap, or Grover, like, summoning the power of nature.
That's the Percy Jackson adaptation I want to see.
Ooh,
One that's both faithful to the books and just, like, a blast to watch.
So I guess the question we're left with is, what does it really mean to adapt a beloved story? Is it about being as accurate as possible, or is it more about capturing the feeling, the essence of the story, even if you have to make some changes along the way?
And that's a question that's going to keep coming up.
As long as we keep getting adaptations.
Because it's a really tricky balance to strike.
It is.
But when it's done right, you can be truly magical.
Absolutely.
All right, well, that's about all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive, and we'll see you next time.